All right, this is the third in the three-part mini-series on manipulating strings, working with strings. We're going to talk about string functions that are available. We're going to look at how to work with some of the built-in string methods to manipulate strings. Again, I'm only going to demonstrate a subset. There's very few of them relative to the number that are available, but these at least will get you started with what's possible, and you should be able to explore from here on out and see what else is available. The key idea here in this video is that before you go off and write a lot of code to start parsing through strings and working with them, the .NET framework probably already has something at least partially that you can leverage. You can probably combine several together to get the results that you want, rather than like looking at each individual character and keeping track of, oh, I saw my comma here, to do something as simple as a split, okay? And I'll show you what that is in just a moment. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just type in a little phrase here. So string, my string, equal, it's better to be lucky than good. Unfortunately, I am neither. Okay, so just need a silly little phrase so that we can start plucking it apart. So in this case, I'm going to use the first method called substring. And substring will allow me to pluck out, starting at a given spot in the string, let's say position number 5, and this is 0 base, so it's the start index. Then pull out how many items. In this case, I can just choose 5 by itself, and it'll start at 5 and go all the way to the end of the string. So let's start there. Console.writeLine, and then my string, just to see what this will do. And so it started off, it left its ITS space, and then it started on the 5th character, better to be lucky than good. Now I can just pull off only 12 characters by adding that and using an overloaded version of the substring method. And I'm only pulling off better to be, so I'm just starting at 5 and pulling 12 additional characters. Great. So that's substring. All right, another useful method, especially for comparing strings, is to use the toUpper. So in this case, I'm just going to go inside of WriteLine and call toUpper. And we'll see what happens here. All right, now I get it in uppercase characters. All right, there is also a toLower. And run that, and so it removes all capitalization, like the I, the first I at the beginning of that sentence. And again, the value of this, in my mind, is to be able to compare two strings. You take whatever input that the user has given you, you're expecting them to type out a phrase, compare it in all caps or all lowercase against some string that you are expecting to see that the user typed in all lowercase or all uppercase, whatever the case is, and then you can compare apples to apples, so to speak. So that's where that comes in handy. All right, so next up, let's take a look at, and let me kind of get back to here. We'll get rid of that. All right, let's take a look at a replace. So in this case, I'm going to do my string equals my string dot replace. And what I want to do is replace the old character with a new character or a sequence of characters. So I'm going to take all the spaces out and I'm going to replace them with double dashes. And that should be good fun as we manipulate this. It's dash dash better dash dash to be lucky than good. And notice at the end we have some trailing spaces, so we get 4 dashes in a row there. So that's a replace method. Whenever you're taking data from one system and you need to convert it somehow and get it into a new format, into a new system, the replace is invaluable. I use it all the time. Okay, so let's go ahead and comment that out. All right, and I'm going to do one last example here. Go my string equals string.format length before after. All right, so you can see that I'm going to, first of all, try to demonstrate what the length of the string is, or rather how many characters are in the string, by calling the length property. So that will be the before. Now what I want to do is call the trim method, and the trim will trim off trailing spaces from before where the first legitimate character starts and after the first legitimate character. So for example, let me just add a string before the I and its, and then I already know that there's two space characters afterwards. So let's go ahead and do that. Then we're going to go myString.trim, and you can see there's also a trim end and a trim start, but trim will trim off both sides. And then I want to go length. Now also notice how I'm chaining together these methods and properties. So .trim.length, I'm able to just continue to tack on to the ends of these and move on. I could also call another method here if I wanted to, like toUpper after that. So now let's run this. And you see the before was 37 and the after is 34. And what that accomplished is, first time the before counts all characters inside of the literal string. Then we trim it off, and so we say get rid of this first character here and these two characters here, and then give me the length. So it's less by 3. And the reason why you would want to use trim is before you save data that the user input from a field of information or whatever, you want to trim off any extraneous characters. Maybe they hit the spacebar a couple times, just muscle memory. You don't want to save all that data in the database, otherwise your first name isn't just Bob in the database, it's Space Bob. So when you go to search for it, it doesn't show up, right? Because, well, how is that even possible? I know there's a Bob in the database. Well, it's not Bob, it's Space Bob. So you want to make sure to trim the data and validate that data before you go and try to do anything meaningful with it. So there's a way to do that using trim. Okay, so at any rate, as I said earlier, these are about just a small sampling of all the possible string manipulations that you can do over these 3 videos that we've watched. However, this short list of things you can do with escape sequences and using string.format to format numbers and using the string builder and then using these built-in string functions, they should serve you well as you go about manipulating your strings. I'd encourage you, before you go off and working with a lot of lines of code to manipulate strings, you should take some time and see what does the .NET Framework already give me that I could use instead of spending hours trying to write your own little algorithm to parse and get everything just perfectly. I'm betting that the .NET Framework will get you awfully close with some built-in functions that it already has, so you don't have to write it a lot yourself. All right, so now we're going to give the same treatment to dates starting in the next video. We'll see you then.